Can anybody see this car behind me? It's pretty hard to spot. This innocuous vehicle is the coupe version of the Skoda Enyaq iV, and in particular the vRS variant. It's basically the standard Enyaq with a slopier roof, but do you actually gain anything from losing a few inches at the back? Before we answer that question though, if you like this video, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you want to read more detail about this car, check out the written review in the comments below. From the front, the coupe looks exactly like the regular Enyaq iV. This particular car, being a vRS, has the crystal face option, which is a lit grille between the headlights. It's not an air vent at all, but a bit of bling that really comes alive at night to make sure people in front know you're coming, in case they didn't spot the paint job. The only real difference is the sloping fastback. Manufacturers, including Skoda, are assuming a slanty back is enough to call a car a coupe, but that used to mean 2 doors and only 2 seats, so the word has been somewhat stretched. Either way, while some slanty back SUVs look decidedly dubious, BMW X6, we're talking to you, I rather like what this does to the Enyaq iV's appearance. The basic car looked a bit agricultural, but the coupe does have a sporty sense to it. The basic car has 201 HP and is rear-wheel drive only. The ATX is 4-wheel drive and has 261 HP, and this vRS version has 4-wheel drive and 295 horsepower. All versions, however, have the 77 kWh net battery. There's no 60 variant of the coupe with a smaller battery. All cars have a solid basic spec, including a panoramic sunroof, front and rear parking sensors with rear view camera, and a large 13-inch infotainment display with connected sat-nav. There's basic limiting cruise control too. Upgrades to Sportline Plus and you get VW Group's brilliant Matrix LED headlights. An electric tailgate with kick opening, adaptive cruise control, and a bundle of more advanced safety features we will go into later. Apart from the extra power and crystal face front, the vRS adds more aesthetic touches over the ATX Sportline Plus. The basic colour for the 80 is blue, but there are some sober blue, grey, white, silver and black metallics for £660 and a velvet red option for £1,045. The vRS has its own paint options, however, with this colour the default choice. You can get the more sober colour options for no extra cost, and the velvet red is £390, as is an orange, but that is about as bright as this green. You get 19-inch wheels with the basic 80, 20-inch with the Sportline Plus, and a different 20-inch wheels design with the vRS. You can upgrade every car to larger options, however, and these 21-inch rims are available, which is a £620 option for the vRS. As with other Skodas, there's a massive array of options and they vary depending on the trim level that you've chosen, and they range in price up to £4,000 for some of them, and some of them aren't available for different cars. We'd recommend you check the PDF on their site to get the exact details. One to highlight though is the fact that you can get a heat pump for a little over £1,000. If you don't know what a heat pump is, it's basically a fridge working in reverse, and it's a much more economical way of heating your car than using an electrical element. This car has 4 of the less expensive optional packages, but you get so much as standard with the vRS, it's still fully loaded. That includes having a head-up display as standard. Let's take a look inside. The basic coupe has 4 interior design choices, but the Sportline Plus only has 1, and the vRS 2. This is the standard covering for the vRS, but there is a micro-suede upholstery option too. Initially I thought these seats were a bit hard, but after doing a number of hours of driving in a row, I realised they're actually pretty comfortable on a long journey. These seats are electrically adjustable and have 2 memory slots. They're heated too, as is the steering wheel. There's plenty of space in this cabin, and it has a semi-traditional feel about it, which may appeal to those who don't want things to be too futuristic. So you've got a fair bit of storage options in this central area. We think these 2 cup holders are a little bit too close to the buttons, because once you start putting bottles in here, it obscures some of them. There's a little bit of space here. This cable converts your 2 USB-C ports into USB type A. You've got this cubby at the back here with a handy little thing inside it. And it's worth pointing out that this is a wireless charger, and it also has wireless CarPlay, so all you need to do is pop your phone in there if you've got it paired up, and you've immediately got CarPlay sorted out in your car. There's a couple of little slots here for putting pound coins, if anybody remembers what those were. I guess they're still useful for a supermarket shopping trolley. There's also this slightly strange bit of extra storage under the central console. So the glove box is pretty small. We don't know quite why they've cut it in half like this. It's barely enough to put this documentation in. And maybe you could get 1 extra pair of gloves in there too. It's also worth noting that the passenger side also has electric memory seats. One of the problems with fastbacks is often that they've slanted the roof, so it makes it harder to get in and out. But actually, it's not too bad. You can see I haven't knocked my glasses off the top of my head getting into here. And once you're inside, there's really quite a decent amount of headroom. If I was 6'2", I'd still be pretty comfortable in the back of this car. The panoramic sunroof further adds to the sense of rear space. Knee room is decent, maybe not the most we've seen, but definitely plenty of space for a full-grown adult. This middle seat isn't too bad, but you still probably wouldn't want to be the passenger in the middle over a long period of time. And if you don't have one, you can of course pull this down, and you've got this nicely hidden cup holder that you can use as well for 2 people. So rear seat passengers also benefit from having their own air conditioning controls. You can see it's a triple zone. They even get heated seats in the back, which is excellent. But one thing that seems to be missing on this version is any USB charging in the back, which is pretty unbelievable. It's worth pointing out that there is a pack that comes as standard with the Sportline Plus trim that does appear to include rear USB chargers, so we've no idea why the top of the range vRS misses out on them. It's particularly strange when you see that there are actually mobile phone pockets and of course these magazine pockets, so that your kids can put their copies of the life history of Václav Havel or whatever it is that kids are reading these days. Both of the outer rear seats have nicely composed ISOFIX points, and you even get them on the front seat as well. This particular vRS has an upgraded audio package. Something we really loved about the original Enyaq was just how massive the boot is, and usually when you get a coupe version you lose a fair amount of that, but in this case it's not actually that much. This is a massive boot. As you'll notice, it's got a kick boot release. And once you look inside, you'll see that there's actually enough space to put a full-length suitcase. And we could probably fit another one side by side and maybe another couple of them on top. So that's enough suitcases for 4 adults to go on a long trip. You still get 570 litres with the rear seats up, just 15 litres fewer than the non-coupe Enyaq iV. Let's look at the rest of the boot. So this luggage shelf is a little bit flimsy for such a quality car. So if you drop these seats forward, which have a typical 60 and then 40, you get a total of 1,695 litres, which is again only 15 litres less than the original Enyaq's 1710. So this is an absolutely enormous amount of space. One thing you'll notice is there is this lip here, and you can eradicate that by going for the 320 quid transport pack. That doesn't just add a secondary floor to flatten this out, it also adds buttons on the side which will let you drop these seats forward without having to come around the side like I have. So you get a lot more space here than a typical compact estate car, and you don't lose a lot over the basic Enyaq. This car can also tow if you add the 815 pound electronic operated tow bar option. That gives you 1,400 kilograms of brake capacity for the VRS and ATX, and that drops to 1,200 kilograms with a single motor 80. Unbraked, the limit is 750 kilograms across all versions. Although we like the electric boot release, it's worth noting that this button is really quite high up. I'm 5'10" and I can reach it reasonably easily, but if I was like 6 inches shorter, I think I'd be a bit high up. With that 82 kilowatt hour gross, 77 kilowatt hour net battery, range is great across all of the coupe options, and this slopey roof adds to the aerodynamics as well. Even the very powerful VRS has a range of 323 miles, and if you go for the single motor 80, the range is 345 miles. In reality, you're probably going to get more like 240 miles in the real world. I took this car on a 216 mile round trip up and down the M1. When I was going north, I got 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour, and when I was coming back, when the torrential rain, it dropped to 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is still pretty decent. Luckily, the sat-nav in this car actually realised on the return leg that I wasn't going to make it, and it helpfully redirected me to an Ionity charger in the Milton Keynes area where I was able to charge up, and it also told me when I charged the car to the level that would be needed to get me home, it told me that I could carry on. So you get obviously a CCS port, as most cars have. DC charging, however, only goes up to 135 kilowatts, which we think is a little bit paltry in a car in this generation. That only takes about 29 to 35 minutes to get to 80%. Although we'd really like to have seen a higher charging than 135, it was getting about 127 from Ionity, so this car is still more than capable of a long journey with only short stops to replenish. Skoda has opted for a more traditional cabin experience than parent company Volkswagen. The instrument binnacle is digital and there's a large 13-inch infotainment screen, but the buttons are more substantial than the membrane ones VW uses. There is a start-stop button, but you can turn the system on just by simply pressing the brake pedal. The steering wheel is traditional in feel, with media buttons and a volume control on the left, plus settings for the cruise control on the right. The volume wheel can mute audio too, something inexplicably missing from VWs. There are windscreen wipers on a stalk on the right, with lights and indicators on the left. There's another stalk for operating the cruise control, which is reasonably intuitive to operate. Drive controls come from this lozenge in the centre, which feels a little understated. This includes a B mode with extra regeneration for urban driving. There's no park mode, so you have to pull the electronic park brake instead. These paddles on the steering wheel alter regen level, but only when in D mode, not B mode. Auto hold is on as standard. There are some discrete buttons for the climate control, although most of the operation will be done through the LCD panel, which we'll talk about in a second. You've also got the central locking button here, and this changes the drive modes, which include Eco, Normal and Sport, plus there's a mode for icy and slippery conditions, and you can personalise your own options as well. The digital instrument binnacle is recessed, making it feel more traditional than VW's, but the information provided is the same, with speed in the middle, ADAS on the left and sat-nav directions on the right. The vRS also comes with this rather excellent HUD as standard. This 13-inch infotainment screen is larger than on most electric cars from the VW group. The interface isn't that different, however. The home screen includes sat-nav view, media controls and quick access to a few functions. You've also got these controls for changing the climate control, which is actually triple zone, but you only get access to the 2 zones here. If you press these 6 squares down here, you get to the full menu and you get to things like the telephone view. You can actually select a device and you've got the ability to select CarPlay and Android Auto that way. Also, if you go in, you've got charging here, which shows you kind of what your state of charge is and sets that up. You can also get a view of saving charging locations, your favorites in there. Go back to the menu. The vehicle view gives you a schematic. You can change the mirrors, external things, internal things as well. The head-up display, change the location of that if you want to. Driving data, what you actually want to see in your trip meter there. So quite a nice kind of graphical user interface to that. You've got radio and media controls here. And then if you go to the navigation, you can see there's destinations. You can search through places that you've been before and change the way the background lighting works. More air conditioning controls, configure the assistance systems. How long do you want to actually have driver alerts? Do you have to want those on? Speed warning off, that kind of thing. We'll talk about these safety tech shortly. One of the nice things about this is you can actually move stuff around in this interface as well. Basic car settings there, that's more for the kind of way this menu itself actually works. Scroll along, you can set up different users, manuals, smart link. You can see that's where you actually get your you probably won't want that on your home screen because that's actually, you set that up once and use it straight away. It's worth mentioning again that CarPlay is wireless, so you don't actually have to have your car connected to your phone directly by a wire. You can actually personalize this home screen as well. If we just go into the vehicle here again, you can see that it also gives you some status, and this is rather useful. It shows you that the last person to drive this car has been relatively uneconomical compared to some of us. You can see long term it's a lot better. With vRS branding attached to this car, you would expect a decidedly sporty driving experience. But we shouldn't forget this is still essentially a large, heavy electric SUV. The 295 horsepower of this car projects it to 62 miles per hour in 6.5 seconds, so it'll be around 6 for 60 miles per hour. This is decent, but there are faster electric SUVs around, and some of them are a lot faster too. The 80X is a few tenths of a second slower, and the basic 80 takes 8.5 seconds to hit 62 miles per hour. The steering is tight enough for precise control, but you can still have an easy life driving around urban areas. However, where the vRS reigns supreme is on the motorway. It can still pull strongly from 60 miles per hour and sits very confidently on the road. Having driven this car down some very windy, rainy, torrid conditions down the M1 motorway, I can confirm that it feels very safe on those kind of conditions. It's a large car to be driving around town, but like most EVs, the B mode, smooth delivery of electric power and regenerative braking all make it very, very comfortable in those conditions. Overall, the vRS is no Porsche Taycan, but it does have more driver enjoyment than the basic Enyaq. Other than the high visibility paint job, there are a lot of other safety features built into this car. With the basic 80, you get speed limiting cruise control with lane assistance. You also get traffic sign recognition, and there's no need for an extra pack to have parking sensors front and back and a rear parking camera. The Sport Blind Plus trim adds blind spot detection. This pops some very visible orange lights on the wing mirrors. The cruise control is upgraded to adaptive with traffic stop and go. There's more interventionist lane assistance plus urban steering accident intervention, which basically jogs you out of the way a little bit if you're going to hit something. The vRS, however, doesn't add anything particularly extra on the safety front. I did notice that the emergency braking was quite aggressive when parking. That was a good thing on one occasion when I failed to see a low-lying barrier. The lane assistance interventions are well balanced, with just enough to give you a quick nudge, but not so much that it freaks you out and makes you do something reactive. Overall, it's great to have a parking camera as standard, and the safety tech gives you a sense of confidence when driving with your family. There's no specific Euro NCAP safety rating for the coupe, but the original Enyaq had a 5-star rating, and it's not hard to see why. Being a Skoda, you'd hope that the coupe Enyaq wouldn't be overtly expensive. It's not cheap though, starting at just under 45,000 for the basic 80. The Sportline Plus adds 5,500. And if you want the dual motor 80X on top of that, that's another £2,000. The vRS we have here starts at over £54,000. And this one with its extra options is just over £57,000. That feels like Mercedes territory, but EVs do have a ridiculous premium attached. They'll also put it squarely in the Genesis GV60 zone, which also, rather ironically, also comes in seriously bright green. But let's just go through how this car compares to its most obvious competitor, the Tesla Model Y. The rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Y costs the same as the basic entry-level Skoda Enyaq Coupe IV. The Y may be faster, but the Enyaq Coupe has 22% more range, which means that it's probably the better choice. The long-range Model Y costs the same as a Sportline Plus version of the 80, but it has similar range and faster performance, so I'd call that a win for Tesla. However, the vRS is only £2,000 more. It's nowhere near as fast as a Tesla, but I can't help liking this Czech underdog. It's got a lot of character. It's worth mentioning that Volkswagen's own fastback SUV, the ID.5, is a lot more expensive at every trim level. Overall, the Model Y is going to outsell either of these cars. Nevertheless, the Enyaq Coupe is still a strong contender, even if it's not an outright bargain. Skoda has left its Super Estelle days far behind. So it's great that you've got this reversing camera as standard on all cars. Jokes aside about being able to see this paint job from space, I really like the Skoda Enyaq Coupe IV, particularly in this vRS form. Performance is adequate, if not earth-shattering, and the range is excellent. You lose very little from the slopey coupe format, and I think it actually improves the aesthetics considerably. The equipment level is strong across the range and excellent with the Sportline Plus and vRS. This is basically a great family EV for a reasonable, if not outstanding price, with a slightly sporty appearance. Well worth considering. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.